Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we are bringing back for the second time Mr. Gary Nicol and Karl Morris. They are European teaching pros. They are co-authors of the new book, The Lost Art of Playing Golf. The first time that they were on the show, they were talking about their other book, the best-selling The Lost Art of Putting. Gary and Karl, first things first, I have to say thank you for coming on the show before and giving me those putting tips, because as listeners heard, I have my handicap down to the lowest it's ever been, and I have to say It's because of the things that you guys taught me on the putting green, so thank you for that.
That's brilliant.
Well, congratulations, well done.
That's brilliant to hear, Adam.
Great work.
Yeah.
So I actually, my friends were poking fun at me a little bit because they saw me on the putting green with just one golf ball now. And they're like, what are you doing? They come in sleeves of 3. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, you got to go listen to Gary and Karl. So anyway.
I think the interesting thing is, Adam, that, we've had some such fantastic feedback from people, just, like you've just given there. And, what we keep hearing over and over again is that the strange thing about the lost art of putting, and the same with the lost art of playing golf, we're not really telling you how to do it. We're just giving you some concepts that you can go away and you personalize for yourself.
That's been my experience. And, Gary, have you kind of noticed the same thing from people with the early feedback or the late feedback now on the lost art of putting?
Yeah, it's the constant feedback, really. It's the regular, frequent feedback is very much that people like the idea or the concepts of the fact that we're not actually telling them what to do. We're not telling them how to stand, how to hold the putter or the club, how to swing it, how to do anything like that. Just give them some concepts and allowing them to do some exploration with them and personalize them, as Karl said.
And so that leads us into the next book that you've written, and it is fantastic. I've had the chance to read through it. Is The Lost Art of Playing Golf. And right from the start, when I heard about the new book, the title itself really struck a chord with me, because it seemed like, and it implies that perhaps there is an art to playing golf, and people are maybe losing touch with that. Gary, when you and Karl were thinking through this new book, what was the main trigger that said, you know what, we have to expand this a little bit?
I think the real main inspiration was essentially the fact that we've both seen so many really talented players go down the route of searching for technical perfection, looking for the perfect swing in the hope that, or the belief that will turn them into a great player. Now, what we've discovered and what we've experienced over the years is that the guys who tend to go down that technical route and go too deeply down it, they just end up in a mess. They end up tied in knots. They end up thinking way too much about the golf swing, and they lose connection with actually playing the game of golf.
Karl, would you agree?
Yeah, over and over again, as Gary said there, and I mean, we've seen so many players go down that route, and and then when you trace it back for an awful lot of players who do become successful, you often hear stories such as, we didn't have much of a range at our club, and as a kid, I used to just play 54 holes a day in the summer holidays, and I was on the golf course all the time, and just learning how to play shots and create shots and put scores together. And then as a lot of players progress and they get the opportunity to stand on perfectly manicured driving ranges with wonderfully symmetrical pyramids of golf balls in a perfect location, right, and spend countless hours there, and the game seems to go in the reverse direction. And I think there's a momentum hopefully building with all this, that there is, if that route has made you a better player, if getting very technical, if obsessing about positions during the swing is making you a better player, we make the point in the book you should continue down that route. But if it hasn't, we just want people to explore there could be a different way. There could be a different way where it's not so much about a coach's opinion of how your golf swing should look. It's a little bit more about you uncovering what the genius of your body could do if it's allied to some great concepts that you have running through your brain.
That's interesting, Karl, because one of the themes that's within the book is a phrase that you offer very early on, and that is golf is something that you do. It's not what you are. Is that kind of what you're touching on?
Yeah, I think, I certainly fell into that trap, and I'm sure maybe Gary didn't, but, we'll know a lot of people.
I did.
People,
oh, yes, I did.
People who did that, When you start getting a lot of attention because you become a successful junior and people start patting you on the back, and very quickly, Adam, if you're not careful, your identity as a human being starts to depend on the direction a golf ball goes. And when that's the case, that's a very, very sort of thin tightrope to walk. And we kind of trying to connect people back to the idea that golf is a part of you as a human being. It doesn't define you as a human being. And when you connect back a little bit more for your reasons to play, and the great paradox is when you get connected back to some of those key issues, that you're actually creating the most fertile ground for playing the best that you can. So it's kind of a reverse engineering way of getting to be the best player that you can possibly be.
And Gary, same question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone who's played golf to any kind of level will at times fall into the trap of believing that whatever they do in the golf course is a direct reflection of them as a person. And when your game goes off a little bit, you start to doubt your ability to do anything because you gauge everything against your ability to play golf. And it becomes so all-encompassing and all-consuming that it can drive you nuts. It really can. As anyone who's ever played the game will experience. However, that is part of the challenge, isn't it? And I think we sometimes, we always ask the players we work with, ask us, we ask them 3 reasons, why do you play golf? Give me 3 reasons why you play golf. And they'll say, well, I love being outdoors. I love the social aspects of it. I love the challenge, the physical and the mental challenge of it. And it's just great to be outside and enjoying the beautiful scenery and the serenity of a golf course. But it's amazing how quickly they lose sight of that when they fire into the trees or out of bounds off the first tee. We've all been there as well, yes?
Yes, we have. I have, definitely.
Well, I think we all have.
Yeah.
I think we all have.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's really just, the whole book's really just about getting back to the art of playing golf, because you can't learn how to get up and down for par on the driving range. You've got to learn how to do that in the golf course.
Where does that rings true with me, Gary? Believe me. Where does gratitude fit in with all of that, Gary?
I'll pass that one on to Karl, because that was very much his chapter. That's very much his baby. There, he did all the research, or most of the research on that one. And yeah, I'll let Karl take this one over. Okay.
I think for me, Adam, it became more clear for me in the past couple of years as things that were going on in my own life, that being good at golf or being happy or being successful really is determined by what you put your attention on. And it's so easy in this world now that there's so much going on that sort of troubles in the world, and it's very, very easy to sort of get on the golf course and sort of feel as though it's all about the score for the day, and not actually pay attention to the very fact that the wonderful environment that you're in, and the things that have been done to prepare that golf course for the day for you to actually have the opportunity to play. And all the more I looked into the research, the literature on gratitude, that it's a great message for our time, really, that fundamentally we're probably living on in many ways on the best opportunity that we've ever had in human history, but we're almost all being corralled into thinking that we should have more and we should achieve more and things like that, and the gratitude is at the bottom of the list. And yet the irony is that when you're really grateful for the opportunity to play, again, you're creating the conditions to express yourself in the best possible way. And we make the point in the book, it can't be gratitude with strings attached, in the sense that, well, I'll pretend to be grateful if I put a good score together. It's not about that. It's that one of the things that we talk a lot about in the book, that the holy grail of golf is this idea of consistency. Or if I can just get the right swing and just get the right technique, I'll be consistent. Or every bit of sort of science in terms of motor learning talks about the fact that is an impossibility, that every golf swing that you will ever make in your entire life will have some slight variation in it. And that goes from Tiger Woods down to the rest of us. So even if the best players in the world have slight variations in every swing, we've got to forget the idea of consistency. And the holy grail for us is not consistency, is adaptability, is the ability that whatever you've got today, if you're actually thinking the right way and processing the golf course the right way, you can adapt with what you've got today to actually put the best score that you can together on that day. It might not look pretty today, it might not feel great today, but actually there is a way of getting the best out of what you have on this unique day with a bunch of unique shots that you've never had before and you'll never have again.
Gary, when you talked a little bit about when you ask students why they got started in the game, does that theme kind of ring true with them, the adaptability theme, where they just have to expect to be flexible in their game?
I think if they understand that from the outset, then learning to play the game or learning to improve or just getting better at the game full stop becomes a whole lot easier. If they understand that from the outset, the consistency, everyone's trying to achieve the unachievable, and they get frustrated by it. Well, no wonder. If it's not achievable, then why spend countless, endless hours beating balls and beating your head against a brick wall when ultimately it's really not going to happen. Has anyone ever mastered the game of golf as yet? There have been guys who've mastered it for spells, or appear to have mastered it for spells, but then, the golfing gods, as they say, will come back and bite you just when you think you've cracked it. So, yeah, as long as people understand that adaptability and adjustment are far more important and far more achievable than consistency in so much as you're trying to create a consistent golf swing. The golf course does not demand that you create a consistent golf swing. It demands that you create a variety of different shots to different targets, whether they be fairways, greens, or whatever, in different and variable conditions. Golf's the most variable game or sport I've certainly ever come across, and I've played a few and witnessed a few. So you've got to be prepared for that variability and these inconsistencies in golf courses, in weather conditions, in wind and rain. Certainly where we are in the UK, we don't have 80 degrees and perfectly flat calm conditions all day, every day, maybe once a year. So you've got to be able to adapt and adjust. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, believe me, our weather patterns are very similar in Chicago. We don't we get just a few months a year we could play.
Sure.
The theme of consistency is something that you also discuss in the third chapter of the book, and there's a phrase here that golfers often talk about consistency, and yet they think they will find it through constant change. That's an interesting take that I found to ring true to me as well.
Yeah, well, we're always trying to, again, achieve this mythical consistency, and then if I just try this, I'll try that for 2 holes, that doesn't work. I'll try something else. You try that for 2-3 holes, that doesn't work. So I've never quite understood how we can achieve consistency through constantly changing things.
I agree.
That doesn't make a lot of sense, really, does it?
No.
But that ties in, Adam, with one of the key, we believe, fundamental questions that maybe needs to change with the game of golf. That most golfers are asking the fundamental question: what's wrong with my swing? And if you ask that seemingly obvious question, what's wrong with my swing, you will disappear down a whole rabbit hole of opinion based on somebody else's opinion of how you should actually move through space. But if you've got a golf swing and you line up a bunch of coaches, you'll get a bunch of different opinions. But if the question is what's wrong with my shots, then that is very different, because maybe there's too much curve left to right, right to left, too high, too low. And working on shots as opposed to just swing has an end point. And we firmly sort of propose the idea that on any given day, you might not have your golf swing in the sense that it might not feel 100%. But on any given day, there's probably a bunch of shots that you can play if you are tuned into playing shots, and you become much more aware of your own tendencies in terms of shots.
That's really interesting, because then later on, you talk about the tendency and the shot-making ability of someone that everybody knows, and that is Tiger Woods. And it almost seems as his... would you say that his win, his 15th major at the Masters this year, is kind of a personification of what theme you're talking about in the book? Karl, I'll start with you. Yeah,
100%. I think, when I was watching as we all were watching the Masters on the back nine, and Padraig Harrington, who's a very, very bright golfer, made the comment that Woods on the back nine was playing shots that he could rely on, and he would seem to be in a lot of shots off the tee just that left to right cut into the middle of the fairway. And he was so tuned into actually playing shots that day that's what actually got the job done. And it's interesting. I know Tiger's looked after his own game for a while now, and I'm sure he's got an incredible understanding of the golf swing. But it looked when he won the Masters that he was just absolutely focused on playing golf shots, because as Gary often says, when you get to the end of a round, they don't ask you how many swings that you've made. They actually ask you how many shots you've taken. And
that's true.
You don't get a couple of shots knocked off if your swings look good that day. It's not like ice skating where you get some marks for how good it looks.
Yeah, you don't get any bonus points for artistic impression on the golf course, unfortunately.
Well, speaking of artistic impression, you also go into Shane Lowry a little bit. And Gary, I think the examples of Tiger and Shane, it was a really interesting year for majors, because we almost had these bookends of these two golfers that almost had to get back to their enjoyment of the game. And in doing so, were able to achieve something completely bigger in magnitude than perhaps they even imagined.
Yeah, I think in both instances, certainly at the Masters, it's probably the first time in I don't know how many years that none of the commentators were stripping down and analysing Tiger's swing.
Right, that's true.
They were all talking. Yeah, they were talking about his shots rather than his swing, and Shane Lowry exactly the same. In hindsight, we really shouldn't be surprised that Shane won the Open, because he is a fantastic golfing artist. He is all about creating shots, and he did that all week, but especially on the Saturday. On the Saturday, he just blew the field away. I think he shot 63, 64. Can't remember exactly the number, but he just played fantastic golf, and there were no two shots the same. He just played a variety of shots as and when required, and it was great to watch. If you were to put the majority of the field shot trackers on a screen against Shane Lowry's, you would know which were Shane's, because they were just very different. When everyone else was trying to bomb it dead straight and through the air off the tee, Shane was hitting little cutty fays and little low draws and all sorts of things, just because he was playing the golf course. He wasn't playing golf swing, he was playing golf and playing on the golf course. He's creating a variety of shots, and you could see how much fun he was having. What's more enjoyable than visualizing a shot than actually bringing it to life? It's quite rewarding.
It very much so is. And, obviously not to compare the amateur game to that of two major winners, but I think you touched on something there, Gary, that even I've felt to a degree when I'm playing a good round of golf and I get to that realization of I'm playing a very good round of golf, and almost the magnitude of achievement begins to kind of cloud my mind a little bit, and I stop having fun. Now it becomes I have to complete this goal that I got myself into. Do you find that to be pretty common?
Yeah, very much so. And that's probably the most common thing that we hear about people who, when they're playing well, they get to the 13th tee and they're playing their best they played all year, and they think, oh, wait a minute, I'm out of comfort zone here. Oh, now if I just par in from here, or if I only drop 2 or 3 shots, and you start defending the score you have, you forget about how you've been playing to get to that point.
Right.
And really, it's not. People say I finished really poorly. I had it going great for 12 holes, and I finished really poorly. I just lost my swing. No, you didn't lose your swing. You just lost your attention. You lost your focus. You allowed your attention to wander. You're standing on the 13th tee, and mentally you're filling in your scorecard for the next 6 holes, and you've not even hit your 13th tee shot yet, and you're thinking about what you're going to put on the box for the 18th hole on your scorecard. So your attention jumps way into the future. So you become totally disconnected from the task at hand, which is, it's the oldest cliche in the book, because Ben Hogan said that the most important shot is the next one.
That is true. And Karl, would you say that struggle to kind of take it to that next level, but while staying within the same mindset that got you to that good point in your round, would you say from the folks that you've taught is also a pretty common challenge?
Very, very common, Adam. And I think we've got to have tools to deal with the inevitability of the way the mind works, because there's all sorts of research about people will do an awful lot more to hang on to what they've already got rather than risk something that they might achieve in the future. It's called loss aversion. So when you get a good score going after 12, 13 holes, that part of your brain that wants to protect what you think you have kind of kicks in. Whereas that, in situations like that, one of the games that we've done with a lot of players over the years, it seems such a simple thing to do, but we say to them, in situations like that, rather than looking at the golf course being 18 holes, 2 sets of 9, why don't you look at the golf course? Because it's up to you to decide what the golf course is. Why don't you look at it as 6 sets of 3? And then all of a sudden, then that just shrinks the goal so that, you could decide that you're 6 under your handicap after 13 and panic about hanging on to it, or say to yourself, okay, right, I've got just the next 3 holes I'm going to play. Let's see what the golf course is asking me in the next 3 holes, and let's see how well I can do just for the next. And that shrinking of the goal, that change of attention, just allows you to actually keep progressing rather than, as I said, the default of the brain is to try and protect what it perceives it owns. The problem is with golf, you don't own a thing until you get in the clubhouse.
That's true. That's definitely, add up that scorecard and sign it at the end.
Yeah, correct.
So a question that came in through Twitter, our friend at the Ghost of Hogan, this is kind of similar to what we're talking about here, and he asks why when he's playing, even with his friends, playing a money game, perhaps in a tournament, he doesn't play the same way as he would when he's just walking 9 holes on a Tuesday evening. Does that kind of ring true with what we're talking about?
Yeah, very much so. It's basically what happens is you place more importance on the shots and the outcome than they probably deserve or should have, just because you're playing for something. So all of a sudden you lose connection with the task at hand, which is creating a shot at a particular moment in time, a unique moment in time, and you start thinking about the outcome. You start thinking about, right, what this putt is for, what this shot is for. If I hold this putt, I'll get back to 1 up. Or if I miss this putt, I'm going to go 2 down. So it's all down to attention, which we talk a lot about in the lost art of putting and in the lost art of playing golf. Because as Karl will tell you, that golf, well, life in general is basically about what you put your attention on, and golf is very much about where your attention is. And Karl's always said to me, your attention can be 1 of 2 places, somewhere useful or somewhere useless. And the phrase that he introduced me to a few years ago, which I love and I've repeated 1,000 times since, is as golfers, we have to become attention detectives. We have to figure out where our attention serves us best. And hopefully there are some tools in the books that will help you, the golfer, to find out just where your attention does work best. And that's why we use a lot of questions. That's why we're always asking questions, because questions focus your attention. So when we ask a golfer a question, their mind just goes straight to thinking about, okay, how am I going to answer that? How am I going to answer that? And the golf course is always asking you questions. And if it's a good golf course, it's hopefully going to be asking you interesting questions.
That's true, and hopefully we can respond to those with some equally interesting answers. And what you're talking about, Gary, is, towards the end of the book, you talk about the power of imagination, and there's a quote in here from a researcher, pay attention to what you imagine, manage your imagination, and what you permit yourself to imagine. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, Jack Nicklaus always said he never hit a bad shot in his mind before he played a shot. But a lot of guys, we'll take them out on the golf course in an on-course coaching situation, and whatever shot they're faced with, they'll say, okay, what is the shot here? Then they'll say, well, it's a 3-wood, a 7-iron, 6-iron, whatever it may well be at that moment in time. And then we ask them, what does a really good shot look like? And they'll say, well, a good shot goes right down the middle of the fairway, and as long as it doesn't go in the left-hand rough or the right-hand bunkers, I'll be fine. That sentence should be chopped in half. A good shot looks like it goes down the middle of the fairway. Full stop.
So you're no longer thinking about the bad things.
No, because if I said to you, okay, whatever you do for the rest of today, please don't think about a bright red sports car. What model Ferrari are you thinking about?
That's right. That's a very good point. It's very similar to I forget which psychologist ran the experiment, but the white bear experiment. Stop thinking about white bears, and of course you're going to think about white bears all the whole time.
Well, like I just did there, yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Karl, would you say that that is something that, just the power of imagination is something that golfers have to tune into in order to learn more about themselves?
Yeah, because we think that it's all about training our body and standing there and trying to replicate movement, but yet, when we talk about great players, we talk about great imagination. Seve, as mentioned extensively in the book, Seve Ballesteros. We've talked about Tiger Woods today, Shane Lowry, the power of great imagination, and yet we don't often do anything to train our imagination or increase our ability to imagine golf shots. Yet, what we keep finding over and over again, it started with the putting. When we can get people, when we can get golfers really engaged in an image of a we call it the 3-ball highway, with the putting, the idea that you could see 3 golf balls tracking into the hole. It's amazing when you get people involved in images like that with the richness of those images, then the body seems to organize movement to actually get that task done. And as I say, I don't think we've looked enough, and science can't explain enough just yet, that when we produce very, very rich images, real clarity of intent, that this body that we have that's took billions of years to evolve is pretty good at organizing movement around a clear intention. If you go back to when we were roaming around in caves and we came out of the cave and every day was about survival, and there was lunch moving in front of us there. We organised movement to secure that lunch. I can't imagine that there were too many spear throwing coaches when cavemen were around, because we probably wouldn't have evolved.
That's true.
We wouldn't have survived. But that we seem to be able to evolve movement based around clear intention. And again, that's something I'd ask people to really look into. We're not saying don't look at technique. We're not saying don't take lessons, but if you're just drowning in the idea that somebody's got a perfect move for you, or there's a tip that you can latch onto that will improve your game and everything will be fine. Well, most people's experience is that that's not the case. But if we can link this idea of rich imagination linked with self-organization, how your body organizes movement as it's been doing for millions of years, then it's an interesting journey to look at.
Definitely is. And listeners, once again, we are talking to Gary Nicol and Karl Morris. They are the co-authors of a fantastic new book. Everything we've been talking about today is in it, and the name of the book is The Lost Art of Playing Golf. All right, gentlemen, we've reached the point in the conversation, much like we did last time, where I'm going to ask each of you to provide one thing for our listeners, a key takeaway. And because of the topic we're talking about, I'm going to ask each of you to answer this question. What is one thing that golfers can do right away to enjoy the game a little bit more? And Gary, I'm going to start with you, not to put you on the spot.
Thanks for that. I should have known that was coming at him, really, shouldn't I? I would say one question that every golfer should ask, which is a question that we ask throughout the book, and we actually dedicate an entire chapter to it. Does the swing create the shot, or does the shot create the swing? Now, traditionally, historically, we've all been told or led to believe that if we make a good swing, we'll hit a good shot. Now, unfortunately, most of us have hit too many golf balls over the years to understand and realize that that doesn't necessarily work. So when you're thinking entirely about your technique or focusing solely on your technique, you become disconnected from the shot. You become disconnected from the task. But if you allow the task to create the technique, then all of a sudden, as Karl's just alluded to there, your brain and body will come up with the correct movement to allow you to create that shot. So if you think about it, basically, if you think about it this way, would you use the same swing to hit a low draw as you would to hit a high fade? They've got to be slightly different. They're not massively different, but they are different. So rather than working on your golf swing, which is what most golfers do when they go to the range, they go and work on their swing. They don't go and work on their shots. But the golf course demands that you create different shots. So why don't you go and practice them? Why don't you train for what you're about to face on the golf course? So if you allow the task to create the technique, you might be pleasantly surprised at what your brain and body are capable of.
Okay, I will keep that in mind as I go to the driving range later today. Karl, what about you? What's one thing that golfers can do right away to enjoy the game a little bit more?
Yeah, I would say get really clear on the question, why do you play golf, and take some time to answer that, and don't necessarily go with the first answer that comes out of your mind. Just ask it two or three times, and then when you've got some clarity on why you play golf, the theme that it came from a guy called Vin Harris, who I've known for a long time. He said, what you need to do is keep in mind why you play golf when you play golf. And as Gary alluded to earlier, though, I think it's very easy to lose sight of why we play when we actually get out there. And it might be worth writing in your yardage book or a little notebook or whatever, and just remind yourself that when some of the chaos takes over on the golf course, as it inevitably does, just tune back into the reasons why you're out there. As I say, keeping in mind why you play when you play.
That's also great insight there. And gentlemen, once again, thanks for coming on the show. Listeners, Gary Nicol, Karl Morris, co-authors of The Lost Art of Playing Golf. Go out to Amazon, pick up a copy. It's a nice, digestible read, too. I mean, it's very easy to read. It's not super long or anything like that. It's something to definitely study and to understand a little bit more. And if you haven't already, as we talked about earlier, The Lost Art of Putting. And again, it has helped me. I'm telling you it has. And again, guys, thanks again for that, because
you're welcome.
My playing partners aren't very thankful for that, but I've definitely benefited. So, gentlemen, thanks so much for taking time out on your Saturday for doing this.
It's a great pleasure, Adam. Enjoyed it again.
Yeah, fully enjoyed it, Adam. Thanks for the opportunity.